okay, so like we'll do our intro and then like we'll introduce ourselves. Then so we did our intro and then my friend was like, okay, you have to introduce yourself. And I was like, shit, who am I?
It's just like, wait, what was my name again?
I was like, okay, hi, my name is Jessica. Then I stopped and she was like, that's your bio? And I was like, what do you want me to say? My name is Jessica. I'm a
Just like, do you
Leo. I
not
like
know yourself?
pumpkin
Just, hi, I'm Dean. I'm an Aquarius. I should not be alive. I'm kidding.
like, what do you want me to do? I can't replace a fire alarm on my own. Like, barely. And all this time I couldn't recognize that I'm alright. Yeah, I'm alright.
Hi, friends. How's it going? Welcome back to the InkGuild podcast. I'm Dean, joined today by Jessica. Do you want to say hi?
Hello.
Cool. So today we're going to be talking about our most annoying YA tropes. And between the two of us, we have chosen 3 picks because between the two of us, we do read a lot of YA. I think her more than I have because there was a time where I didn't read as much, and I think I think just by getting back into YA specifically, I've been able to read a lot more regularly, but that doesn't excuse how many problems it has. So that's why, I guess at a time like now, what better way to air out grievances than by talking about things that annoy us a lot? So, and keep in mind that when we are talking about our most annoying thing or our most annoying tropes, we may get into spoiler territory. So here's your warning, or here's your collective warning right now. So, Jessica, do you want to start with your first pick?
Yeah, sure. Um,
Love the confidence.
it's awesome. So the first one that really bothers me is when the protagonist like doesn't see their own like attractiveness, I guess. When the
Yeah.
narrating voice is like, my god, like I am so ugly and like no boys like me or whatever, and I'm just like, excuse me, what?
Yeah.
Like there are lots of YA books. Like I find it especially bad in like contemporary YA, where it's usually girls too. I
Mm.
mean, I've seen a couple with male characters that are like, oh, like I'm not strong enough to like be on the football team or whatever, and it's mostly girls, and they're usually like, oh yeah, like I'm nothing special and whatever. I'm like, no, own that shit. like Aelin in the Throne of Glass series. You never hear her say like I'm not pretty. She just walks in and she's like, sup bitches, I'm here, praise me. And you're
Yeah.
like, yes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Like the whole like, oh, I don't recognize my own kind of beauty thing. Like in general, I find that kind of annoying. Like not even in books, when like anyone I meet who is like, oh, like I'm not a pretty person or whatever, like I don't see my own worth. It's like, bitch, the fuck, you were the most stunning human being I have ever seen. Shut the hell up right now. But in books, yeah, especially like what is it like in I'm thinking maybe like my memory's probably like failing me on this, but I'm thinking maybe Katniss from the Hunger Games, who doesn't really like accentuate her like physical attractiveness all that much because that isn't really the point. But at the same time,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I'm not worth, or I'm not worth something looking, or I'm not worth looking at. It's like, bitch, you are a badass archer who is destined to lead a revolution. The fuck do you mean? It like physical beauty does not account for shit. Why? Like, and another thing too, like maybe you might agree with me on this, but like when it comes to like the big elaborate plots that like stuff like the Hunger Games or like Maze Runner or Throne of Glass, like when there's so much shit already, like is your physical attractiveness really more like is your physical attractiveness really something to highlight anyway?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. Like there are lots of characters that I've seen who authors make them like conceited, and
Yeah,
I'm like that's good as like a flaw or something. I'm like you should at least make the rest of your characters like semi-confident in their abilities, I guess. Not so much like not just appearance, but like them somewhat confident in themselves. Otherwise, it gets tiring after a while.
yeah, and you can understand why that trope is a trope, right? Like it's a pretty easy thing where you don't recognize your own self beauty, but like along the way, after going through so much and eventually falling for like the super fucking hot love interest, it's like, oh, maybe I was gorgeous the entire time, and everyone at this point, it's like, I feel like when you're first reading books or when you're first reading a lot of YA, you're like, oh, that's so sweet. But when you've read the same old trope being used by completely different characters, it's like,
Yeah,
look,
and like
we get it. You're gonna hook up with the super hot. You're gonna hook up with the super hot love interest in general anyway. Just at least own up to your confidence. Like when you were talking about Aelin, like yeah, she's a good breakaway from that standard or trope.
yeah,
Sorry.
and there's definitely like a lot of characters in Throne of Glass series do that. I know Dorian does that, where he's just kind of like, yeah, what's up? I'm the crown prince of Darlin. How's it going?
Yeah,
So it's refreshing, and like Cassandra Clare does that too with um, Harry at the beginning. She compares herself to like her mother, and
mm,
it's like Isabel. She sees like differences, but then like by the second or third book, she like doesn't really care.
yeah,
It was nice to see a progression, but sometimes like character just like stays that way. That, that's really tiring to read.
yeah. Like again, like I was saying at least earlier, when you understand why this is a trope. It's because you're essentially marketing this one trope on top of pretty much all the other tropes that we're going to be talking about to young impressionable kids. So you want to at least install in them the confidence to be like, oh, you were gorgeous the entire, or you were pretty the entire time, right? You might start off feeling unconfident or like feeling nervous or feeling like you're not pretty enough at first, but then eventually as you go through it, it's like, oh, well then, maybe I was looking like Clary or like Aelin the entire time. But at the same time, it's like, where's the confidence? Confidence ain't a bad thing.
Yeah,
If you as a writer are gonna make your character look gorgeous from the start and not let them recognize that yet, and you need to have like someone else affirm that for them, it's like, I don't know, for me it doesn't sit well.
yeah. I think it's especially when like another character has to like reaffirm it for the protagonist. Like if the protagonist discovers it on their own, that's fine. Because that's like a legit thing that happens to people. Like lots of people find their own confidence on their own.
Yeah.
But whereas like another character, especially if it's like a love interest or something,
Mm.
and then they're like, "Oh my god, like you're like the most beautiful person and stuff." I'm like, "Really, guys? Like I know you. I know they think that. Like that's not the kind of opinions I'm here for."
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Oh,
you're already setting up like this huge elaborate plot. We don't need any more of this like, oh, I don't know my own worth thing. It's like, girl, girl, you got this. You are a literal badass. You've been destined to be a badass from the beginning. You're good.
yeah.
It's good to
So
have flaws, but like,
seeing character development in terms of confidence is always very refreshing, especially when it doesn't come from another character in the book.
mhm.
Seeing confident characters right from the get go is like rare in YA fiction
Yeah,
right now.
it really helps them stand out.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
Yeah, kind of scares some people too, because like in real life, it's like if you exude a lot of confidence in general, it's like, oh, what's their story? I kind of don't want to mess with them, but I also want to know what they're all about or something.
Yeah, they're really intimidating, but I also kind of want to be friends with them.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, there's something like write more confident characters from the beginning. That's
And
the
like
whole point.
their characters will be intimidated by them, and it'll make their job of like saving the world so much easier.
Yeah, it also doesn't feel like thing. It also doesn't really feel like a setup anymore. It doesn't really feel like a formulaic setup in the sense that you're not relying on the same trope to get a story started. It's more like, oh, okay, so this is a whole new direction in general. I want to see where this goes.
Yeah, it's like definitely avoiding like defining your character by like their lack of confidence in themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and like defining them with other things, I guess, to kind of like bit like refreshing and make them seem more realistic, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone has the moments where they're like, oh, like I suck at this or whatever. Then everyone also has the moments where they're like, I am the best thing ever. So like you can't write a character that doesn't have like just one, not the other.
Yeah, nice. So my first pick for a YA trope that annoys me is the sorting house trope. And what I mean by sorting house, you would you could probably get you could probably piece the puzzles together. So you have the four main houses in Hogwarts. There's Gryffindor, Slytherin, Ravenclaw, and Hufflepuff. That kind of sorting system has, or each school has a meditated kind of, or they each have their own kind of attributes associated with each one. So if you're a Gryffindor, you're a lot braver, you take a lot more risks. If you're Slytherin, you're a lot more cunning, and with Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff, like you like by now everyone kind of knows that sorting system. And I thought because like Harry Potter was really the only one to do it at the time, that it was a pretty interesting way of writing a story. Like, oh, you sort these characters based on how they act, and that kind of determines a lot of their personality, and you can kind of make your guesses as to how they're going to act for the rest of the story. But I think in the stories following it, it's just been so overdone that it's in a lot of the big ones, actually. Like if you can think of the Hunger Games, in which the district that you were born in kind of determines your fate. Like if you were born in District 12, you're a lot poorer, and that kind of determines your personality. Like you are a lot more humble. You don't really have you have a better understanding of just how life can suck. Meanwhile, if you're in District 1, you live next to the capital, you have a nicer lifestyle, and that kind of comes off across as you're being a little bit smug, right? And that's a far stretch, but I think to really nail it down, in Divergent you have the different class systems. In Maze Runner you have the different roles. Like, I don't know, it just feels like determining someone's personality already like that and sorting them into a sorting them into a system that already determines a lot about their personality already, when we haven't really gotten into the crux of that. It's like, well, shit, now there goes all my curiosity on how this character might react. Because I like that kind of mystery. I like that when I like it when a character goes into a situation and I find out how they react to it on the spot. Like, I don't want to be told how they are already going to be reacting because of what their role is already. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of a way to like bulk characterize characters like all at once, just to give, I guess, like a rounded picture of the character at the start of the book. Like you already know that, like in Harry Potter, you already know that Malfoy is a bad guy because he's in Slytherin. Um, like you, it takes less time to characterize characters when you separate them into like categories or districts or houses or whatever it is in Divergent. I didn't read that series, so,
Neither did I.
um, but I think it's just a way to quickly characterize different characters without like having to do it throughout. I guess the first few chapters of the book, you can just do it in like a couple pages or something instead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely it comes up quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's seriously it's not my most annoying trope, but it is by far obviously one of my 3 picks because it's something that I've seen so commonly in like the big YA books and occasionally in some smaller ones too, where like that immediate kind of like you were talking about earlier, how it kind of already presets your character's personality and how they're going to react to things. It's like, well, where's the surprise there? Like it, like locking them into a situation, for me at least, it kind of feels like, okay, so we know that they're going to get out of this situation based on, based on how they've been sorted already. And that there's no kind of interest for me anymore, because if they're like if they're a Gryffindor, for example, then they're going to react, they're going to take a bit more of a risk with the situation. I'd like to see where it goes still, but like, I don't know. I'd like to think that characters have their own intuition and their own kind of, I guess, their own decision making, and I don't want to have some kind of system already determining that, because I guess the whole point of that system in the first place is eventually the main character at least will be breaking away from it, which is it is such an expected trope or it is such an expected cause and effect that comes with like sorting everyone in these houses in the first place. It's like, I think in Divergent actually, where like everyone's like figured out into their specific classes, but the main character, who I will only associate as Shailene Woodley because I don't remember what her name was, she is the one different one. Like it's weird to me, and it really bugs me because I'd like to have a lot more thing. I'd like to learn more about my character as it goes along, or as they kind of go along their journey, like how they react to certain situations. I don't want to go into that situation knowing how they might react already.
Yeah.
Because then it just kills tension for me. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, if they're cunning, then
they're gonna cun their way out of here, like
they're gonna cun their way out of here.
I'm an English major, I promise.
I believe you.
Yeah, I feel like at the beginning when you had Hunger Games and then Harry Potter, like those were the 2 first like kind of big ones. I think they did a pretty good job. It seemed to be relevant. Like, yeah, they would separate students into different houses based on, their abilities. That makes sense, kind of. And then in the Hunger Games, it was almost like separated them into different countries or like states or provinces or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Based on geography. So, I mean, in those 2, it made more sense than like from what I've heard of Divergence. And even in the Maze Runner, it made sense because like it was a hierarchy society, I guess, and they were just kind of making it up as they went along.
Mm-hmm.
They were kind of like, well, this guy doesn't faint when he sees blood, so he'll be our butcher. And that guy is pretty good with plants, so he'll be plant dude or whatever. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Do you know
Sometimes it works, but
Yeah. Like,
You're
do you know a
different.
perfect comparison for this though? Like, in my opinion,
What?
do you know people who believe in astrology?
Ah,
Yeah. So,
yes.
who really believe in astrology, like, they're people who are identifying themselves as their zodiac sign.
Yeah.
Like, like it already establishes how your personality works, and to me, like I've already said, it it kills any kind of thing. It kills any kind of unpredictability and on the fly decision making. Like having like knowing who you are already, like it probably would just like make me hate you already. Like if I don't like thing like if I don't like the house that you've been sorted in or the group that you've been assigned to based on your personalities, and I'm not gonna like you, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think another analogy too, like if you as a person were able to find out just how compatible you would be with this person immediately, then would you want to take that risk or not, right? Like,
Yeah.
or like based on thing like here are all of your interests with this person, here are all of your similarities, your differences, like all of that on thing, like all of that on display. Some people might appreciate that because some people are nervous and have anxiety, but for me, who does have both, I still like experiencing completely new perspectives. I still like fresh perspectives on completely different things. And if I know all of that from the start, then I probably will or will not associate with you in general as a character. Like, I like I like unpredictability when it comes to my characters, and I like seeing them I like seeing how they react in situations without some kind of thing, without already knowing everything about them beforehand.
I think the astrology is a good thing because you could just walk in and be like, yeah, Draco Malfoy is a Scorpio. That's why he's acting like this because he sucks. Like, well, well that
You
takes
have a thing
like,
against Scorpios then?
I don't know. That's like the one sign where everyone's like, oh my god, they're a Scorpio. Like, why are you acting this way? Oh, I'm a Scorpio. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what?
Given my okay, this is a whole other thing, but like given my knowledge of like people who are like who like are like who take astrology as a religion, it's like from what I can hear, Scorpios are bitches, Geminis are babies, um, and then everyone else is either completely weird or completely normal. And I'm like,
Yeah, and so I don't know. It's funny to think about that because you could just be like, uh, Harry Potter is a Leo. That's why he's like, I don't know, stupid and tries to catch a letter from the air instead of picking one up off the ground. And
yeah,
you could be like, yeah, it's because he's born like Leo sign. And then you could be like, okay, well, now I kind of know that, hey, next week he shouldn't eat shrimp because that's what his horoscope said.
yeah.
So,
Oh my, like,
it presets like certain array of decisions that your character will make or not make. Yeah, I get where you're coming from, where it kind of takes some of like the tension or mystery away when your character has to make a decision, but you already have like four options about what that decision is going to be.
yeah, like if a character fucks up, then I at least want to know just how their own personality kind of takes it from there. Like if they are naturally a brave person, I don't want to know that from the beginning. I want to see it evident in that situation. Cuz then that'll show more that'll show a lot more about them actually being brave rather than being introduced to it from the start. There's the whole thing of like showing and not telling, and I think that's a perfect example of it, cuz I think over the years personally, as I've gotten better at showing rather than telling, and keep in mind I'm still not perfect at it, but it's better to show how your characters personal or how your characters react to or how your characters are. What am I trying to say? Like, story of my life. Just I don't know what I'm trying to say most of the time, but like what I'm trying to say is it's better to let your characters show off who they actually are rather than introducing them as everything that they're supposed to be already, because stories change. You're not always reading to the same, you're not always presenting it to the same like reader in general. Like, people are different. Everyone is completely different in terms of being a reader, and like, you want to see how your character kind of makes it their own. Like, how is it that your character is the most unique without having them sorted already?
Yeah, and I think it's pretty. Harry Potter is probably the best example of using sorting like really well.
I think it's the best because it's probably the one that did it first, and
yeah, it's probably like biggest one that did it first. So.
Yeah, and nothing really has kind of done it better, because it was a pretty simple enough concept. It hadn't really been done at the time, and because there was a lot of books that were trying to be the next Harry Potter, or at least get to that kind of success. It's like, oh, we can use this thing from Harry Potter, and one of the things that they would use from Harry Potter is the sorting system, which why? Given my knowledge of it now, I don't think it should stay. Like, it's annoying, and I don't want it anymore.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to stop using certain things in novels because people are just. It's like when the Hunger Games first came out, and then the Maze Runner came out, and then Divergent came out, and then like 30 million other dystopian books came out all around the same time. And it was like, once you've read Hunger Games and the Maze Runner, so you've read 6 or 7 books following roughly the same kind of idea, it's like, well, I'm done with this now. Then there's like 20,000 other books that came out around the same time with the same core idea.
Right. Cut out again.
Woo!
Was there anything you were kind of adding on to that final point that you were saying?
I think much like I was getting at is you're writing a book, like obviously write the story you want to write, but don't feel like you have to stick to what's popular or like what's trending in books, because then you'll end up being your book will end up being one of the books that people feel is copying other books that came out first or got more popular first or whatever. And so like you should, people who write or read books should really just read or write what they want to, and not like hey, the Hunger Games sold however many millions of copies, so I'm gonna write a dystopian YA novel with a love triangle and it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Like, you have to learn to avoid it and not write or read what sells.
Yeah.
Because chances are there's lots of tropes.
Yeah, and this actually brings us to the end of part 1 of this. So in part 2, we're going to be talking about our second picks for the most annoying YA tropes. So stick around for that. Hi friends, welcome back. So this is part 2 of Jessica and I's discussion of the most annoying YA tropes. And I'll give it over to Jessica to discuss her second one.
So my second YA trope that really bothers me is the outsider.
Oh my god.
The whole I'm not like other girls, or it's like that meme format where it's like, rest in peace, but I'm different. Like, no.
What? Wait, hold on. I'm thinking of a completely different thing, but like, I think I get what you mean. I definitely know this trope, but like, what? Where does that come from?
I don't know.
Okay, continue on.
Like, like the character is like, yeah, like like to skateboard. I'm not like other girls or whatever. Author that's really bad for that is Sarah Dessen. Of her like male protagonists are usually like, oh my god, like I'm the shy, quiet girl, and like nobody understands me, and I don't have any friends. I'm like, this is this is aggressive. I,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's when you put like the character or characters like outside, yes, and they're always like, no one understands me. I'm so different from everybody else. I'm like, yeah, we know. You don't have to
Yeah.
tell us or draw attention to it. But like I said, it's really common in Sarah Dessen books, but in like contemporary YA fiction in general, it's pretty bad.
Yeah. Like in, I guess with like fantasy YA, it's almost always the protagonist is some kind of outsider. And we were talking about, visual appearances in the first one. Like there's definitely a lot of key visual differences between the main character or the protagonist and the other main characters at the very least. And I'm thinking of Sarah J Maas, and we were talking about this actually in the episode with Alex on just how different Aelin looks compared to every other one or every other character in the story. Like I both commend and kind of critique Sarah J Maas for like just how like visually different every character is, because it's a good thing that each character is not easily separable. It's not like you can easily like distinguish which character is which just by their facial appearances.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, why? It's just you like some of these characters. I get it's a fantasy, but like some of these characters, you can start off with nothing and still, or you can start off with a very basic appearance, like, and I'm talking like blonde, brunette, or red hair, pale, or like kind of the more natural skin tones.
Yeah.
Like slender frame, stuff like that. Like you can start off with characters like that and still have a very compelling character. And case in point, there's Elide from Thorn of Glass, coincidentally, who, like, there isn't actually. Wait, no, that's not a good. It's a good enough examples, because, like, she, in her own way, is an outsider, like, but she doesn't really kind of feel like one. Like it feels like she's very much a character in that story.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's like when the character dresses it so often, and it becomes like ridiculous.
yeah,
Like if you have characters like Aelin or Selena in the first book, she's obviously in prison and like an assassin. She's
yeah,
not exactly like part of like the A-list celebrities or whatever. But she's not constantly like, well, I'm different than everyone else. Like, I don't know. It's like to drawing attention to like outsiderness is it's so annoying. I can't deal with it. If a character does that, I immediately hate them. Honestly, like, because
yeah,
I've read so many like YA books that have especially girl characters doing that, and I'm just like, get it, like you like the Beatles, you're not like every other girl, but like get over it.
yeah,
Deal with it. You don't have to tell me.
yeah,
Again, it's like telling and not showing. Like Sarah J Maas does a good job of telling you that, or showing you that her characters are different. We know Aelin is different because she's in prison. In like the first book, she's like an assassin. We obviously know she's different, but you never catch her being like, not like other girls. It's like, I am fierce and I am hot and people should fear me. And I'm like, that is a better way to say that she is different from other people than just being like, I'm different from other girls because blah, 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 blah. And
yeah,
like, I.
yeah. No, I definitely agree. Like, Aelin slash Selena, like, that's a pretty good analysis for it, because you're right, she does show a lot of reasons why she is clearly different than most other YA protagonists. Like, tragic backstory aside, and I'll actually get to that in a second, but like, she shows why she is an outsider for a reason. It's not kind of forced in there just because of a certain few quirky traits that
Yeah,
a lot of common people have nowadays in general.
yeah. It's
Like,
like the forced, yes, acknowledgement. The character is like quirkiness, unique. Like, you're not quirky for having a cat named Peanut. It, you don't need to call attention
yeah.
to it in order for your reader to understand, or for like this character to be understood that way. Like I said, Sarah Destin is really bad for that, because most of her books, not that she's a bad writer, it's just most of her books follow the similar plot. It's like a boy meets girl story, or um a boy girl meets boy, whatever. Someone meets someone. um and then like there's a bunch of like family drama or like emotional drama or something, and then in the end they usually, break up at one point, or are in a fight at one point, and then they end up together at the end of the book. For the most part, those are usually kind of the templates that Sarah Destin's books follow. There is like a lot of female characters in her books that are like forcing their difference on you instead of just like, letting it come naturally, I guess. Being like, okay, this person seems like a realistic person. It's almost like character becomes like a caricature instead of an actual character, because they're like, I'm super different and I'm not like other girls, and I like to do this, or I like this, or I can
Yeah.
do this, or whatever. And it's like, I don't need to tell me, you need to show me.
Yeah. I think, like, when I think of outsider characters, I'm thinking like flaws, or flaws and things that they like, that kind of, are supposed to be kind of shunned, almost like shunned at best, but or shunned at worst, but kind of like, what the hell, why do you like this person or this thing, as at its best, where it's like, it's meant to set up how this character is so different from the rest of society. And like, I guess when it comes to how storytelling is nowadays, there's so many things that make characters unique, and rather than embracing them as an outsider, it's like, that makes them cool. Don't don't just tell me that these things are bad. Like, if they are purposefully like outsider related things, it's like, the heck.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of the most annoying tropes I come across, and it's usually like, I say it's like 85% characters that are written with that different than other girls kind of thing, and that's why I'm gonna date the hot guy, and that's why I'm gonna save the world, and that's why I'm gonna do this. And I'm like, well, if you're just like a regular girl hanging out with your friends and all of a sudden the apocalypse starts, like, that's a more interesting story. And this person who's like, I'm different than everyone else, so I'm gonna save the world. I'm like, I already don't really believe you. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's one of the ones that bothers me quite a bit when I come across it. I don't know. I think it was more common when YA was first gaining popularity, like 10 years ago or something. Like, it was really common then because they wanted to show that these characters were like special compared to the other characters. And I haven't seen it as much recently, but it does still come up every once in a while, and when I see it, I get so angry.
Yeah, it's like, we're supposed to have moved past this, guys. Come on.
Yeah, I'm like, you no longer need to, have a character that's super different than everyone. Like, if I can't relate to the character, I'm not going to read the rest. So why would you want to make them super different from everyone else? So yeah, your main character is special. That's why they're the main character. They shouldn't be that different from everyone else. Otherwise, people are going to be like, I did not relate to this character at all, and I put the book down.
Yeah.
Oh.
Nice. Yeah, I agree with you. Just there's such a thing. There's such a like storytelling has come so far nowadays, so you don't always have to rely on, I guess, I don't want to say typecasting, but like setting your character, or your main character at least, as an outsider. Like, you don't really need to do that anymore. Like, if your character just starts off one and the same as everyone and eventually develops, unique characteristics throughout the story, that's a pretty compelling story. Like, how do you go from being part of the crowd to standing out? I'd read that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Rather than starting out like forcefully making yourself and convincing people that if you have to tell people that you're different or special, it doesn't automatically make it true.
Yeah.
It usually means the opposite. It usually means that, like, not that different, because if you have to tell people, then obviously, not accurate, I guess. It's like having to tell people, yeah, I'm a really nice person. If you have to tell people, then obviously, it's not all true.
Yeah.
Or anyway true.
It's kind of like, if you introduce yourself as, like, a person with a bunch of different interests already, I think going back to what we were saying before on like sorting classes, where it's like, I already know so much about you, so that kills so much of the mysteries around meeting a new person in general. Like, yeah,
it limits, I think, the characterization that you can get in so many different scenes in the book, and it just kind of like, again, it turns your character into like a less realistic, rounded character and more into this kind of 2D like figure static character that isn't as engaging.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. So, excuse me, I need to. Okay, there we go. I just needed to burp.
Classy.
Yeah, classy. Very. That's why I said excuse me, just so people knew what the hell I was. I didn't want to just burp right out of nowhere.
All right.
Okay. So, my second most annoying trope, and this one really is, it's not super personal to me, but it's one that, like, I almost put in as number one, but there's one that really annoys me even more than that, and that is having dead parents. Wow. Okay, Discord really does not want me talking about this. Okay, I see you. I just introduced the fucking topic too.
At least we weren't like in the middle of the conversation.
I guess so. Like, I had just said, oh, I wanted to talk about dead parents, and then cut off. It's like
Discord was like, no, I'm an orphan. Like, how dare you?
Yeah, it's like, okay, you want to talk about this shit? Nah, you can't do that. But
just kidding.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna talk about it, Discord. So shut the fuck up.
Me.
Yeah. So the dead parents trope is, where do I even begin? Like,
that was my third one. In all honesty, that's the one that bothers me the most.
Okay, so then I'd love to get your perspective on it in part 3. Yeah. But so why I'm annoyed with it is that it is just everywhere. It's fucking everywhere in a lot of YA stories. Like, what is it, like in Percy Jackson? Percy's mom gets killed. I know. Thing in City of Bones, or The Mortal Instruments, Clary's mom gets killed. In Throne of Glass, Aylin's parents die. In what is it, in Maze Runner?
I don't have any parents.
Yeah, or like Thomas is an orphan. He don't have any parents, but
there's like no adult, I guess, besides the people that are like testing them for something.
Yeah.
So.
Like, and those are just the big examples, because I think I was talking about it earlier on how you're marketing YA to young adults, case in point, and there is such like there like obviously because kids are young and impressionable, like you want to set the importance of like just how much these parents to mean to a teenager, and without them they would be whatever this, but like at this point when it comes to killing off parents in a book, it's like, oh great, what kind of emotional BS am I gonna have to endure through now? Like,
Yeah, it's been done so many times. Like I when I first started writing my own stories, I was very guilty of this. I would automatically, when I was making a character, be like, I'll have no parents.
mm-hmm.
We're starting off that way.
Yeah.
Or if they do have parents, they have like one parent, and they're like the shittiest parent ever. That was
Oh my
like,
god, yeah, like
that was
the
like my
step parent trope too.
yeah, that was like my template because I'd read it so many times. Like in the Mortal Instruments, Clary has her mother, and then her mother like kidnapped and is like not really in the books like at all, really.
Yeah.
Then like Lightwoods have both their parents, but their parents suck for a large portion of the books, and like Jace goes through like 20 sets of parents because nobody knows who owns him until like the second last book or something. Then
Yeah.
like and like Harry Potter, it was kind of like kind of clear why she did that because it was like war and like he was meant like not have his parents so that he could like go to Hogwarts completely blind and like not know that he was like super famous.
Yeah.
But in so many other books, it's so overused. And, like trying to think of other examples. Um,
Well, don't get too far into it right now because we have the same point, and I want to let you elaborate on it in a
yeah,
minute. Like, I want to have your kind of take on it more, because if that's your
yeah.
final point, then I want to hear a lot of what you have to say on it. But
I mean, I have other tropes that I could easily talk about for days.
okay, so then
So
let's just talk about this one. So, um, I think, yeah, the fact that it's one of the most common YA tropes that is still being used, it's honestly like it's honestly stupid. Because you could
I
have,
never
sorry, go ahead.
I never understood that either. Like once, of course, like I got past writing where I was more or less copying the authors that I was reading and like killing everyone's parents or like making them really horrible parents that should definitely have social workers on their case. And I came to a point where I was like, wait a second. If I make them have parents, I can introduce like way more drama and way more tension because then they'll have rules they can't break because their parents are there. And so
Yeah.
I was like, why do so many authors get rid of the parents when there's like so many ways that you can use them, like restrict your character or like pressure on your character? Why? Why do we as writers parents in novels so much?
Yeah. Like, for me, like if we're thinking on just how to like do the trope kind of differently, like keeping parents alive definitely does open up a lot of opportunity for for more drama and whatever, and I agree. But to me, like, has any YA story started off with a friend death? Like, and I'm pretty sure that there has been, but like if I'm trying to recall, like there have been no significant stories, at least to me, that have started off with a friend dying or a friend, being abusive. Because oftentimes, parent relationships or parent kid relationships aren't really that good. And you can use that as some kind of development. But I feel like with friends, there are friends, especially to estranged youth, or just youth that don't really get along with their parents, that like having that kind of relationship being told Like that would be a lot more impactful. If they were to suddenly get killed off, especially early on in the story too, because then it's, then I'd love to see an opposite switch around where suddenly it's the parent dies near the end of the book and the friend dies first.
That would definitely change it around. I think YA has definitely a lot of the problem and pressure on the adults because they want time on the friend characters than they have on the parent. So they kind of just make, these are my shitty parents, or these are my dead parents, or whatever.
Yeah.
Then they're like, these are my awesome friends who are super cool, and we spend all of our time together doing awesome stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's because the writers have spent more time on like friend side characters than they have on the adults, because I think a lot of times, like John Green did say that the reason he writes YA fiction is because teenagers are like, they're much more like rash. They don't make rational decisions most of the time, and like everything
Ain't
to
that
them
facts?
seems like the end.
That's so true though. Ain't
Yeah,
that facts?
like everything is like the end of the world, and like they make crazy decisions, and like so much more like hijinks you can get up to as a teenager than as an adult, because obviously you have responsibilities. So I feel like that's where the trope comes from. So I feel like a lot of writers feel like they can't do very much with the adult characters. They just kind of get rid of them or make them so like hated, you just wait for them to die anyway.
That's true, yeah.
And it's, I don't know, it's very complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you have that one bastard parent character, like in The Mortal Instruments with Valentine. Like, it's either you have like, I don't know if it's just me too, but like depending on parents, like you can either have a really sweet character, typically a mom character, and then you have the dad who is either more than likely a bastard, or in rare cases actually not that bad, and that's typically with like step parent characters sometimes, because you'd have the father, the biological father, as the true kind of anti-hero of this, or the true kind of villain of that narrative.
I think with so many YA stories killing off parents, they kind of miss out on like, all the different familial structures that you can have. Like you can have parents, you can have your character be adopted, you can have them have step siblings, or maybe their aunt lives with them because of reasons the family doesn't talk about. Like there's so much you can do with one or both parents. Then you can kind of create more realistic life for your character, I guess, because there are like so many different family setups like anywhere in the world, and so much of them are like lost in YA fiction because so many authors in young adult fiction just jump to dead parents or only one parent, but they suck.
Yeah.
But it's almost like a missed opportunity if you follow the trope, because there's so much you can do, that you can introduce with parents. And I like your idea of making like friend kind of take on that like abusive or like dangerous, unkind, hateful role, because you don't really see that, but like it obviously does happen. I feel like in YA that would be like a good kind of perspective to show like teenagers and young adults reading it, because I think we kind of forget about that.
Yeah, because like in real life too, like there are a lot of kids that go to their friends when, the relationship with their parents isn't exactly working out. So I think especially when, when we were each in high school, like having friends sometimes was a lot more, I think, mentally sane than being around our parents. But that shouldn't thing like that doesn't mean in a YA you can kill off your parents just because they're being annoying. Like if it absolutely thing, like I feel like it's something that shouldn't happen so early on. Like definitely play into that relationship a lot more rather than, kind of killing it off and then developing it, after their death already. Like I feel like maybe that's just how I'm approaching it with my own YA story. Oh my god. Look at that. Third fucking cutout of the night. Anyway. Okay. So how where I left off, I feel like with just how I'm approaching my own YA story, it's definitely something that like I'm trying not to do. Like I really do want to play on the relationship between Porter and her mom, but I'm not gonna think. Spoiler alert! I guess I'm not gonna kill off the mom in the first few scenes. Because why would I do
Yeah.
that? Like, why would I do that? Like, I want to see, or I want to develop just how much this character means to Porter. And I could obviously have done that with friends and with other things, but if I'm going to, you know, if I'm going to differentiate from the trope and not fall into the same routine, first of all, I shouldn't kill off the mom. And
Yeah.
secondly, I have to make sure that like every step of the way, even though the mom isn't in the picture all the time, like I have to make sure it all matters.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big one.
Like there are obviously significant like dead parent deaths are pretty significant in stories, but I feel like it shouldn't be so common. Like
Yeah.
because then it's like you're just tossing it into a familiar lake. Like you will read, like you may have an interesting protagonist, but if their parents died in a similar fashion or almost in the exact same way as this other character did in this other book, it's like, oh, okay, so they're probably going to go on the same journey. They might go on the same journey, which is like, oh, so then why would I read this one other book if this other book exists already? But I feel like I'm,
Yeah. It's feel like most YA authors off the protagonist, for instance, because I feel like that kind of dates the whole like set apart. Like, Harry had no parents and he was like the chosen one, right? I feel
yeah,
like that creates like a kind of platform for them to be like, I was an orphan or whatever,
yeah,
and I'm here to like save the world and change things because like I've seen how rough it is, and I'm like, well, you need to kill the parents to do that, but it's like the easiest and most common way in YA fiction for writers to like set their characters apart, I
yeah,
guess. Like already, like in Harry Potter, already we know that he is different based on the scar and the fact that he doesn't have parents.
yeah,
We
exactly.
already tell. Um, like there are books where killing the parents is a good thing, I guess, and not so much like a device that the writer has used. Like in a series of unfortunate events, the death of the Baudelaire parents is like key plot point, and like the rest of the books wouldn't exist. That one thing didn't happen. So there are books where it works. There are so many where it seems like it was just easier to, kill the parents or kill one of them or, have them estranged or whatever. And it makes it easier for your character to kind of like do all this reckless stuff and like go to all these places and fight all these people or whatever. It's like, well, just lessen the tension of your own book
Yeah, I
for
agree.
like no apparent reason.
Yeah, wholeheartedly, I
So
agree. Yeah. All right, so that brings us to the end of part 2. Stick around for part 3, which is coming up pretty soon. Hi friends, welcome back. So we're going to be finishing our discussion on the most annoying YA tropes. Jessica, what is your third pick?
So mine is the love triangle.
Oh my god, that's my third pick too. Yes, I'm glad we're in agreement that love triangles are the fucking worst.
Oh.
They are the most annoying and the fucking worst.
Like, okay, love triangles. Here's why I hate them. Because usually, like 90% of the time, they seem so forced.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
So, like, I'm talking Twilight level 4. Like, it's Jacob, Edward, and Bella level of, like, bullshittery of love triangles. It's just, it's almost like, well, I don't want people to know that the two main love interests are going to end up together. And I'm like, for the most part, we already know. It's fine. Instead of being like, we're going to have drama happen between the two of them, it's going to, like, you know, maybe they're going to get into a fight. Maybe something's going to happen between them. No, we're going to introduce this half-naked werewolf dude.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on Twilight, yeah.
And I'm like, it's so, like, needless. Like, there's no reason to have a love triangle most of the time.
I think, like, love triangles back in, like, the Twilight era, they were already like, no, get the fuck out of here. No, we don't need you. Because they feel like you said, like, they don't really feel necessary. And nowadays, they really don't feel necessary anymore. But I guess going back to, like, the Twilight love triangle, like, that's really the one that kind of... I think, in my opinion, that's really the one that kind of popularized everything. So it was either you were Team Edward or Team Jacob. And quite frankly, like... And there were people who were, like, Team Bella, who doesn't need... Like, she doesn't need anyone. Or she doesn't need either of them. And it's, like... I don't want any of this anyway. Like...
Right?
And like how and the handling of that entire love triangle too is just like we knew like I had only ever really read the first book, but I didn't even need to like continue on with everything to know that like Bella was gonna end up with Edward anyway.
Yeah, like, and like it just creates like a bunch of like needless drama instead of having like tension between the actual like two people in the couple. It just like introduces a third person so that they can blame their problems on this third person instead of actually like doing shit together.
Oh my god, yeah.
I'm like, okay, but like I was Team Jessica. You know, like one of her shitty like high school friends in the first book. That was me.
Yeah.
That was my life, because I was like, you know what? Screw them. I don't need love triangle. I'm gonna go with the girl who's like, I want this one guy to ask me to prom. It's gonna happen. I'm gonna make it happen, and it's gonna be great. And I was like, yes.
Like, love triangles in general are just absolutely fucking terrible, because in real life, like, to, you know, go off on a little bit of a tangent, like, in real life, love triangles, like, emotionally fuck you up, especially when like you kind of really don't have anything else better to do, like and thing like that's no offense to like any, you know, teenagers watching this, but like when you were like when you were in like in high school and everything, like God forbid you wind up in a love triangle, because then it's like it's just so much. It's just like if you have personally experienced a love triangle, then you could probably understand why, like, or you could probably relate to why Jessica and I hate love triangles in stories so much. And that is because they are just so fucking annoying. Like, honestly. Like she has brought up already, like there's just a third person that kind of gets a lot of the blame anyway. And that isn't fair to them. They've probably got a lot going on, and to have all this shit too, like, especially if the two, like if it is a couple, right, and then there's a third factor, like it's so divisive, because then it's like who kind of cares for who at this point. And because you're marketing to like young adults who are young and very dumb, there's this whole kind of dramatic, there's this whole kind of dramatic thing where it's like, everything gets blown out of proportion way too much, and feelings get very, very, very hurt, even though they're more just like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. And it's at the end of the day, like when you kind of look back on a love triangle that you personally have experienced, it's like I can't do that noise properly. Like just get the fuck out of here. Yeah. So, like there's the Twilight love triangle. That's the most kind of famous one. For me, in Throne of Glass, there was the love triangle between, or in the first couple books, there was a love triangle between Chaol, Dorian, and Selena. And it wasn't too forced, I think. Like, in my opinion, like Selena kind of was her own character, Dorian was his own character, and Chaol was his own character. And in Throne of Glass, in the first one, it was more kind of along the lines of Dorian and Aelin. They had a couple interactions here and there, but they didn't really get intimate. And how that was handled in the second book, it's like, oh, so now it's Selena and Chaol, which is perfectly fine. They had been hinting at that since the first one, but it didn't really ever ram it down my throat that, it was such a problem for Dorian, right? Like there was maybe one interaction, but it didn't encompass the entirety of the book. Right, the love triangle was not the biggest priority of this or of these first couple books. It was more just along the lines of like, okay, so this relationship didn't work. Let's now move it into another one, and it did it pretty well. Like that is, I think, one of my sole exceptions of a love triangle not being forced, not being fucking annoying. God damn it.
Or just really likes love triangles. Real here.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to love triangles, it's certainly one that I just don't want forced down my throat. I don't want it to be the main thing that these characters kind of prioritize. And I think when it comes to kind of romantic contemporary fiction in general, like in John Green, you can kind of excuse it because that's, what the fuck else are they going to do? But I've said in previous episodes, or I've said in a previous episode when we were talking about book adaptations, that I really am against unnecessary love stories in the first place. And a love triangle is the most unnecessary of unnecessary love stories. I fucking hate it.
Literally gets the most movies for being unnecessary. Like, there no way is a love triangle necessary for your book to be good. Like, John Green doesn't really use like a lot of love triangles. I found he usually uses like problems, like cancer or family stuff or whatever. He usually doesn't go towards the love triangle. It's very refreshing. I actually really enjoy that.
Yeah.
But I think Sarah J. Maas, as you were saying earlier, she does a really good job of not doing like the Disney thing that a lot of YA is guilty of doing, where the girl ends up with the first guy she like falls in love with in a book. Whereas Sarah J. Maas is like, wow, Elena went from Dorian to Chaol to Owen, and it wasn't ever like a love triangle or a weird love square thing, whatever. Yeah. It was like she went from like one to the other.
Yeah, like
there was tension. It wasn't a triangle, so it was okay.
Yeah, like it goes down to, I guess, when it comes to love triangles, like there's like as the age-old cliche goes, there's always more fish in the sea, right?
Yeah.
When you as a guy are focusing on two completely different girls, or you as a girl focusing on two completely different guys, or if you're a girl focusing on two different girls, or like however the fuck love triangles work nowadays, like these two people, like this triangle that you're stuck in is not the end of your world. Like, it's not. There's so many better things waiting out there for you. In terms of like storytelling for one thing, and in terms of like real life for another. Like, we were talking about Throne of Glass, and the initial triangle between Selena, Dorian, and Kale was fine. Didn't feel forced, but ultimately, it wasn't until you got introduced to Rowan where you really started to know a lot more about Aelin as a character and what really brought out the best in her. Right? It's after that.
And yeah, so going off like that point, or Selena and then Aelin went through like Brian and Kale and then Rowan, and like she finally settled on Rowan because they were like best match, I guess, like the most compatible. Because obviously, Kale disapproves of the way she handles things. Disapproves is putting it lightly.
Yeah.
But like that's a good way to like transition. So you have like a little bit of the triangle going on. But it's not like a full on Twilight level. It's more like, it's kind of like the Hunger Games love triangle,
Oh
which
my
isn't.
god.
It's not really a triangle for me because I was like, Katniss and Gil were like, but at the beginning, by the third book, it didn't work. It wasn't really a triangle to me. It was like she changed as a person, as a character, so much so that the first love interest she had was no longer the best.
Yeah.
So me anyway. People are gonna like hate me for this, but to me anyway, she made more sense with Peeta by the end of the books. And you had put them together at the beginning of the book, I would have been like, what are you doing? No, that's completely wrong. They don't go together. At the end of the book, so I don't know, a lot of YA love triangles don't really take into account like the character growth in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of like the love triangle solid throughout the entire book. And then like main character with like, whichever portion of the triangle is like popular or whatever. So, I don't know. There's like certain levels to it where it's like Twilight level and then like Hunger Games level and like kind of a Throne of Glass-ish John Green level where it's like not quite a triangle. It's not annoying.
Yeah. Like it's just because it's been so overdone, and often like at the center of a lot of these characters' development, a love triangle is just what makes it so annoying to me, at least. Like, I understand, coming out of coming out of situations, and you learn a lot from it, but a fucking love triangle, god damn it. Like, especially when it comes to like grander kind of story arcs, when it comes to like the Hunger Games and the Revolution or the Rebellion or Throne of Glass, and quite literally saving all of Ardalan. Like, well, not just Ardalan, but like the entire continent. Basically, it's like there's more important things to worry about, guys. You don't need to worry about this other two people that are fighting for your attention, because you don't fucking need that shit.
Like, and to me, love triangles really don't make sense. If you truly loved either of the people in the left triangle, and there wouldn't be a triangle.
Yeah.
Because, you obviously love one more than the other.
Yeah. And if you are
exactly equal.
Yeah, and if you're that one character who is like, if you've written a character who is like trying to fight for one person in the couple, right? Whether it's the guy fighting for the girl or the guy fighting for the guy, in this sense, it's like, just you were going through so much heartache, and I feel bad for that character, because it's like, oh man, you've really wasted a potential character just making them simp. Stop.
Yeah, like, honestly, like, what does Jacob do in Twilight? What does he add?
He imprints on the daughter.
Life.
He imprints on the daughter, and that's it. Yeah. Fucking no.
Sir. Like, excuse me, sir, you need to be put in prison. That's illegal. is
You
like
need
2.
you need to act like the bitch you are and get put down. I'm kidding. I'm
Honestly.
kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Oh, just
Kind of.
go
I'm
with
kind of kidding.
Leah. Or whatever her name was. The lady wolf.
Yeah. Just like
Um
in
oh,
storytelling and in real life, like I've already said, like there's so many other avenues when it comes to romantic interests. And I get that, I get that when you're in high school or when you're in junior high, you're probably going to be liking someone and someone might like you back and you're going to get stuck in a real life love triangle. But if you've experienced it, it's fucking annoying. And I do not need to relive any past trauma from my own previous love triangles in my books. No, I don't need that shit. And that's not the reason why I hate them. There's a lot of reasons why I hate love triangles, but that's not thing. That's not it. This is getting way too personal. But
um triangles for me. I mean, I don't know. They seem like a lazy way to add tension between two people that are in a relationship together. It seems kind of the easy way out. Like, hey, we're going to add this third person. I'm like, no. You have these two characters and you put them together, or they put themselves together because characters do whatever they want. You put them together. You've made them compatible or whatever. You chose that or they chose that or whatever. And then all of a sudden, instead of having them with each other or each other, which usually happens in real life relationships at some point in some way, shape, or form, instead of doing that, happens in real life, you just bring in this convenient third person. Just like drop them down in Google Maps and you're just like, wreak havoc, have fun, see you
yeah,
later. I'm like, excuse me, no, do not take the easy, lazy way out. Take these two people and have them have their own problems and you have them deal with it. Either they stay together or they don't. There's
yeah,
no third person.
yeah. So I think that's our biggest one. Just don't write a fucking love triangle.
I
If I have
fear
to
it's
if I have to underline if I have to underline the word fucking in front of fucking love triangle like 100 times so you can understand it, please don't do that. Don't subject your characters to that. They deserve better than, that kind of shit.
it's
Like,
not like it's not like you have to keep your character with like the first person they end up with. No, you can
yeah.
have relationships end, can move on. Instead of doing it where, oh, I'm in a relationship but he left me in a forest so I cried for like an entire night in the forest, and this other guy, he's suddenly hot and we're friends and he likes me. Maybe my super hot left me boyfriend came back. Now what do I do? It's like, no, I don't need any of that.
Yeah. Like, it worries me too because I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, but I am trying to not write my own love triangle right now. Or at least I'm hoping to not plan one because this like my book right now, Xeno, is I'm planning to make it into a series, obviously with more characters and whatever. And I swear I don't know what the hell I'm going to do if I end up being my own, like being my own liar and writing a love triangle. I'm probably just gonna cry because it's like
And I mean,
the
hard for
injustice I did to
writers.
myself.
Yeah, it's hard for writers. Like I said when we were talking about dead parents, like that is something that I recognize in my own writing as something that I kind of start with. Like I'm building a character or a story, I'll kind of start with that, and that's like the first block, I
Yeah,
guess, to like building the rest of the character in the story.
yeah, it's
Like
something that you
even if
shouldn't.
you,
Sorry, go ahead.
oh, and then like I did originally have a love triangle in one of my stories because I'd read it, so I was like, hey, you know, try this. Then like, once I'd written it, I was like, this is crap,
Hmm.
trash, and I hate it. I went back and I like tweaked it and I made it so that the relationships were like not a triangle. They were almost connected. It was like they were passing each other almost. Right? Like they were still connected, the three characters, but it was like seeing each other
Yeah.
rather than a triangle. So like there are ways around it, and like to get the words down, you have to write in the dead parents, or you have to write in love triangle. Like do it and then go back and change it and fix it. It is so widely used for a reason. It can help you like figure out where you want to go or direction you want to take it in. Like if you're writing and that comes up, then like don't feel so horrible about it. Keep writing and then go back and change it and fix it up and like polish it. It is useful, I guess. Writers.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like it's something that you can start with, but it's something you shouldn't carry forward, especially like if you're doing a full series or whether you're doing like a big long project or a big long book or anything. Like don't make a love triangle the most consistent thing in that story unless like that's your early draft of it, because love triangles have come and gone for, like through so much storytelling, whether it's like even outside of YA. It's one of the most common storytelling tropes that you can put your characters through, and quite frankly I've had enough of it, and Jessica's had enough of it too. So
it's like if I pick up a YA book, I'm like reading like the back, the little blurb that they put on, and they're like, so and so meets this guy who lives across the street. Then 2 days later, she meets so and so, the dangerous guy who drives a motorcycle or something. I'm immediately like, no,
yeah.
no, I'm not here for it. I'm not vibing with this. Please take this elsewhere. So like it's
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So oh my god. Discord, I get it. We had been talking for quite a while. We're gonna wrap it up now. Okay. So I think that was Discord really telling us to wrap it up in some weird technological
I mean, we should do
way.
Discord. Do what I want.
Yeah, Discord. Fuck you. No, I'm kidding. You're great. The team over at Discord, I love you.
FBI agents listening.
Yeah.
Shut Discord down.
Yeah. Discord team, your software is a little bit wonky, but I love you guys. You're a great team. Keep up the good work. Anyway, I think that kind of brings us to the end of our discussion, because as much as we can rant on for, I'm pretty sure we could talk about annoying YA tropes for hours, but like that doesn't mean thing. Like if you guys want more of that, do definitely let us know. Let us know down in let us know down in the comments, through our social media, our respective social media, as well as our official brand pages, the InkGuild on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure you follow us on there. And I think that's it. I always do a final send off, so I think as an honorary mention, what's one annoying YA trope that you want to quickly talk about but haven't been able to get into?
Ooh. I think mine would probably be whole like chosen one trope, where like your character is like the one person who can do this. Like I'm not into that.
Yeah, the chosen one trope is it's the most familiar kind of storytelling, and I don't need it in a YA book.
Yeah, like I don't need a character who's like, I'm chosen for this. My job, I'm the only one who can do this. I'm like, get out. Leave.
Yeah.
It's widely overused in a lot of YA, like regular fiction and mystery novels, and it's everywhere.
Yeah. So my honorary mention is one that was supposed to be one of my picks, but I ended up crapping out of it because there was one more important one that I wanted to talk about. But my honorary mention is dystopias. Stop writing fucking dystopias for YA. Like, I don't need another story about a crappy government because as of recording this, there already is a crappy government, and I'm not going to name names. We all probably remember which one I'm talking about if you were listening in the given time period. Just saying, but like,
You mean everyone?
Jessica, I said not to name names, but like, we don't like. I don't need thing like when it comes to dystopias. I'm already familiar with the formula of like, oh, there's bound to be a rebellion against this kind of thing, against this like shitty government. Like, no matter how interesting your character is, they're probably going to be the leader of the rebellion anyway. So it's like, God damn it, I don't even want to read the book anymore because I can already predict it, right? And
Yeah, I think the dystopian genre needs some work.
yeah, and I guess as a final send off, look, keep in mind that when we are talking about, when we are talking about our most annoying YA tropes, there are still a lot of pretty good stories that kind of incorporate, that kind of incorporate these things anyway. Keep in mind that this is just our opinions on these, and if you like these tropes, cool for you. Art reading is pretty subjective anyway, but just saying they can be a little bit annoying, and especially if you've read as much as we have, they're very annoying. So,
Oh.
with that all being said, thanks for listening, everyone. Hope you have a good night, and tune in for our next episode, whatever that ends up being. So, goodbye.
Bye.